Most people think that applying machine learning to medical data is a big data problem. What we discovered, and not just us, others as well, is it's really a small data problem. We never have enough data because by the time you focus on a particular disease or condition and a particular patient population, you end up stratifying your data so you never quite have enough. And so what we typically end up grappling with technically is a small data problem. We've looked at a lot of different ways to cope with small data. One of the more productive ones has been what we think of as computational biomarkers. So when you think of a biomarker, historically it's a cholesterol level, it's a measure of some protein, things you can measure directly. Today, we don't have to rely on things we can measure directly. We can take a lot of things and apply sophisticated computational techniques and construct an artificial biomarker, a computational biomarker, that is actually more informative than the directly measured ones. If you have a heart attack, even if you don't have a heart attack, if you're in the hospital for any period of time, they will collect a lot of data about the electrical activity in your heart. So they'll attach you to an ECG and continuously monitor what's going on electrically in your heart. If you go in for your annual physical, if you're of a certain age, they'll do this for about 30 seconds. If they're worried, they'll send you home with what's called a Holter monitor and measure it continuously for a week. A cardiologist does not sit and inspect all of that data and reach some conclusion. Now, there are simple things people do and have done for a long time. They can count the number of premature ventricular contractions and put that in as a feature. And that is a simple biomarker, but it's very simplistic. One of the things we've done is we've looked for biomarkers that show things that are invisible to the naked eye. One of the things we've been interested in is the question of who should get an implantable cardiac defibrillator. When it notices that the heart is in distress, either it's beating unproductively or it's not beating at all, it delivers a massive electrical shock to the heart and essentially, in computer term, reboots it. Well, people walk around with that implanted in them. You don't want to turn it on unnecessarily because the shock is really rather severe. It's like getting kicked by a mule. Problem is, most of the people who get them, they never actually deliver the shock because the patient doesn't need it. Maybe 10% of the people who get them, it saves their lives. So the question is, could you identify the people who don't need it and not put them through the trauma of surgery and the system through the cost of the implant? Could you identify the people who don't get them who would benefit from them? Right now, we're not very good at deciding who would benefit from them. When are they useful? They're useful when the heart goes into ventricular fibrillation or when the heart goes into arrest. Why does that happen? Our theory was it happens because there's been some damage to the heart muscle, the myocardium, that makes it electrically unstable. If the damage is large, you can see it on imaging and do something about it. If the damage is small, you can't see it on imaging. So we asked ourselves, could you see it on the ECG? And the answer was, not with your eyes. So we said, well, could we see it computationally? The problem is heartbeats are not regular, and that's a good thing. We want to see variability in heartbeats because it shows the autonomic nervous system is performing as it should. So the question is, could we separate useful variability from worrisome variability? To do that, we found we needed to look at about at least 9 hours of heartbeats So it's not something you can see in your annual physical. Because what we had to look for is statistical patterns, which would only emerge if you had enough data. From those, we developed a metric called MV, for morphological variability, that measures small electrical instabilities in the myocardium. And we have evidence that we believe indicates that those instabilities are a good predictor of arrhythmias that could be treated, we believe, with a defibrillator.